Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Political Forum. This is the show where you get to talk with elected officials inside the city of Chicago. My name is Mike Jacobson. I'm a staff member here at CAN-TV, and joining me tonight, to my right, is the commissioner, the Cook County Commissioner from the 1st District, Commissioner Richard Boykin. Great to have you on tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Great. So this now is your chance. If you have a question, comment, or concern for the Commissioner, the number is at the bottom of your screen, 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. And also, please tell your friends and family they can watch us online at cantv.org/hotline. All right, Commissioner, so let's kick this show off. Tell us a little something about yourself for folks who may not know you.
Well, I've been in office now for a little bit over 500 days. I represent 60% of the west side of Chicago and 7 near western suburban communities. I believe fundamentally that the most pressing issue of our day is that of gun violence and the toll that is taken on too many of our communities in the city of Chicago and throughout the county of Cook. I believe that we must do some things that are outside the box to deal with these issues of gun violence, and we've put forth a number of proposals, solutions to deal with the gun violence that we see that is causing terror in too many of our communities.
So let's talk about that. There's many things. I know that you've been in the news, talking about gun violence. You're looking at even you like the governor to even do something about it, take it a step further. You want to explain that?
So we asked the governor about 6 months ago to declare a state of emergency with respect to gun violence. Last year, nearly 3,000 people were shot, nearly 500 people killed. This year alone, we've had over 1,800 people shot. We're not even halfway through the year yet. Over 300 people killed, 313 to be exact, as of today. This is a major public health crisis and a public safety crisis. The number one responsibility of elected officials is to protect the people that we represent. If we don't do that, we shouldn't be in office now. In Orange County, Orlando, Governor Rick Scott, immediately after the shooting at the Pulse nightclub, declared a state of emergency because of that shooting. In Flint, Michigan, the governor there declared a state of emergency because of the dirty drinking water from the lake. And so from the Flint River, we believe that this crisis of gun violence demands a state of emergency declaration, and the fact that we don't have a state budget. The fact that there is no state budget and we're a year without a state budget. Mental health programs aren't being funded. Not-for-profit doors are closing. People aren't getting funding for jobs programs, summer jobs programs, and a whole myriad of other issues as a result of not having a state budget. The other thing is that the city is in crisis. There is a crisis with respect to the Chicago Police Department and whether or not there is a Ferguson effect or ACLU effect, and the police are actually sitting back and not policing these communities. Or on the other extreme, of course, we've seen a lot of police misconduct. $500 million in settlements for police misconduct here in the city. So we believe that the federal government needs to step in, bring the agencies of the federal government to help stabilize these communities that are in bad shape as a result of gun violence. And we all know the neighborhoods: Alston, East and West Garfield, Lawndale, Back of the Yards, Humboldt Park, Inglewood, Roseland. These are the neighborhoods where this violence is concentrated. These neighborhoods need investment. These neighborhoods have not had the real kind of investment that they need in the last 50 years. There's been little to no investment. And so we see the results and the manifestation of that lack of investment playing out today.
And so when you're talking about gun violence, well, first, folks, again, if you'd like to have a question, comment, or concern and want to talk to us, the number 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. So going on the gun violence, what are some of the effects, the ripple effects you're talking about, like healthcare issues, jobs issues, housing issues? Like, what do you see?
Look, what we see is we see communities that have totally been traumatized. We see children who, are afraid to go to school because of fear of being shot. We see individuals who are being shot on our expressways and highways. We see individuals who are being shot sitting on their porches, trying to enjoy the weather. But they're shot by stray bullets. It is virtually a war going on in some of these communities. And of course, it's the impact of it is drugs that are being targeted in from Mexico, from Afghanistan, heroin and that sort of thing. So we have to deal with these issues, and I think that the major effect, of course, is on our young people and the fact that they cannot enjoy a real quality of life. I was meeting with a senior citizen a few weeks ago in Austin, and she was telling me every day she hears gunshots. Seniors shouldn't have to live like that. These populations have pretty much been rendered almost endangered populations. People who are trapped in these communities or these war zones, they can't sell their properties that they bought 20 years ago. They can't sell them. They can't even give them away. And so we as a country, we as a people must stand up and demand that there are solutions to these problems of gun violence. I believe that if we had a will to deal with it, that we in fact can reduce gun violence in Chicago. Part of it is a persistent poverty that exists. There's been exacerbation of that poverty as a result of not having a state budget. Unemployment, double-digit unemployment in many of these communities that I'm talking about. Austin's unemployment rate, 22%. West Garfield's unemployment rate, 26%. At the height of the Great Depression, unemployment was between 16 and 20%. These communities have unemployment that rivals and even surpasses that of the Great Depression. We must put every ounce of our energy, public resources into these communities to help stabilize them, to help give them hope. This is really a symptom of hopelessness.
All right, folks, so if you want to get in contact with the commissioner, here is the contact information. This is the office in Chicago at 118 North Clark Street, room 567. Phone number 312-603-4566. And you can also reach him by email at richard.boykin@cookcountyil.gov. All right, folks, so again, if you got a question, comment, or concern, call us, 312-738-1060. That's 312-738-1060. Joining us tonight is Cook County Commissioner Richard Boykin. So you talked about the state budget, in past, talking about the violence. What are people telling you besides? Because obviously there's a lot of issues here that's revolving around the state not having a budget. What are constituents? What are people telling you?
Look, there is a real uncertainty. There is a real fear. I met earlier today with the president of Chicago State University. Chicago State primarily depends on the state for its budget. He was telling me that kids, their enrollment is down. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is kids don't even know if they want to go to Chicago State because they don't know if it's going to be open because they don't have a budget. And the state, hasn't even given them money. I talked to young people and parents, and they, of course, are concerned as to whether or not schools are going to open on time. Of course, there is no budget, and schools aren't slated to open on time right now without a budget. And so, look, the people in Springfield, there has been a total failure there, and it's enough blame to go around. It's been a total failure. The blame is not on just one person. It's a total failure across the board. Whenever you can't come to a compromise and figure out a way to put politics aside and put the people's interests first and make sure that we take care of the very basic needs of government, and that is having a budget. You couldn't run your household without a budget. And so, we have to take care of the people. And so those are some of the concerns. Look, the uncertainty over whether or not schools are going to open, the uncertainty as to whether or not somebody who's been matriculating through Chicago State is going to even graduate. And if they do, will the school close and nobody know anything about Chicago State? The uncertainty about jobs and the competitiveness of our state. Look, uh, the bond ratings in the state have been downgraded to near junk status. That means that in order to borrow money, you have to borrow it at a higher interest rate. And so, you can kick the can down the road in terms of paying back the interest on borrowing. But guess what? Our children and their children will have to foot a huge, enormous bill because of our neglect, because of the fact that legislators and the governor have not done their job and have not agreed on a blueprint, a budget that works for everybody in Illinois.
And we're seeing some of the effects there because there's been news out talking about it, like the Chicago areas. They're losing the population, therefore, like Chicago may go from the third most dense city to maybe fourth, with Houston, jumping ahead. Is that some of the reasons we're seeing? Is it from the impasse? Is it from the violence? Or is it just, or is it everything?
Look, I think it's a combination of things, but I also think that the violence is driving a lot of people out of the city, into other places. I mean, we often read about it or we hear about somebody saying that after their kid's been shot, I was just getting ready to move out. Somebody told me I needed to move because Chicago is too violent of a city. We have to get this violence under control. We can do it. We have to have the will to do it. And I encourage the people to take actions much like the Congress, the House Democrats did today, and that is John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis, civil rights leader, led the House into revolt today, and that they're doing a sit-in until the leadership in Congress, the Republican leadership, actually brings forward some gun control bills to be voted on. The people deserve a vote on these bills. I frankly don't think that individuals who are on a terrorist list ought to be allowed to buy a gun. If you're on a no-fly list and you happen to be on the terrorist list, I mean, right now, if you're on the no-fly list, you can go buy a gun. That shouldn't be. Not in America.
And actually, along those lines, you have some news coming. You have some kind of a summit next month in July, correct?
Right. We have a summit focused on endangered population groups. Basically, I maintain that all of this gun violence is really centered in a few communities, a handful of communities. The predominant group that's being impacted by gun violence are African Americans. 85% of those being shot and doing the shooting are African Americans. So it's black on black crime. 10% of it is Latinos. And so, those two population groups are virtually endangered population groups when you look at who's dying and who's being shot. The reason why people should be concerned about this who are watching is because most of these individuals who get shot wind up at Stroger Hospital, Cook County, or they wind up at some hospital. Suffice it to say, taxpayers are footing the bill for that. I mean, to stabilize a gunshot victim costs thousands of dollars. The county estimates that gun violence is going to cost us upwards of $50 million at Stroger Hospital alone this year. That's just to stabilize individuals. Then when you look at the costs that come after that, the aftercare costs, say a 15-year-old is injured, shot in the back, he's got a spinal cord injury. This individual can't walk again. He's in a wheelchair, can't work. Who's going to take care of him? 15 shot, lives to get $62 million in aftercare. That's just one case. This gun violence can bankrupt our county, our city, our state if we don't do something about it. And we have a moral obligation to do something about it. So we're inviting the United Nations to come to this. We're inviting Amnesty International. I've invited the federal officials, Congressman Davis and Congresswoman Kelly and Congressman Rush. I've invited state legislators. I've invited the mayor, President Preckwinkle. We want to drive some solutions, but we also want to put the spotlight on this violence and say, hey, federal government, we need you to step in and do something about this. We're incapable of doing it at the city level and the state level. We've proven that we can't solve this matter. because there is a crisis of leadership at the city, and there is a crisis of leadership in the state. Can't solve it.
So, is there anything like in terms of the county with the Cook County Sheriff's Office? I know that you work closely with them. So, what are they trying to do to help this?
I was just with them last night. Last year I called for the sheriff's office I called for the sheriff to actually increase his activities in the city of Chicago in terms of working in tandem with the Chicago Police Department. They had been doing some things, but they have dramatically increased the number of actions that they're doing now. So they're right now in Austin working alongside the Chicago Police Department, patrolling, writing tickets, and actually taking guns off the streets. I mean, I think that's so important. Every gun that we take off the street is a life saved or a series of lives saved. So I want to thank Sheriff Dart for his leadership in this, and Deputy Chief Anton for his leadership as well. So they've expanded and done just about as much as they can do. It's only a force of about 500 individuals, the Cook County Sheriff's Police. They need more officers, of course, but we're going to work on that with him. But they're doing a tremendous job in terms of working in conjunction with the new police superintendent, Eddie Johnson, and patrolling in the city.
All right, folks, you're watching Political Forum tonight. Our guest, Commissioner Richard Boykin, the 1st District of the Cook County. And here's some information for him if you need it right here. If you need to give him a call, if you need to shoot him an email, all the information's right here. The phone number 312-603-4566. You can also email him at richard.boykin@cookcountyil.gov. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about some projects and some things that are going around, in the county. One of the things is with the old Cook County Hospital. Well, what's going on there?
So there are going to come hotels, condos. They're turning the old Stroger, the old Cook County Hospital, into a hotel and condos. There will also come a new clinic as a result of this, a new Fantas clinic. That is a big project, hundreds of millions of dollars, $770 million project. I voted against it because I thought the project should have had a stronger community benefits agreement. I found it to be a toothless tiger, if you will, in terms of prioritizing employment for communities that desperately need those jobs that will be created as a result of this economic development project. Also, ex-offenders weren't included in it. My district in Austin, East and West Garfield, includes a high number of ex-offenders, people who are returning back from prisons. I think they need opportunities to work. If we want to reduce gun violence, we got to reduce the overall unemployment rate. We got to get more people paying into the system and more people who have hope. So I think projects like this are good. I'd like to see more projects west of Western, because I maintain that for the last 50 years there's been little to no investment west of Western in terms of the west side. We've seen thousands of jobs leave out of that community. We saw Sears and Roebuck, which was headquartered in Lawndale, 10,000 jobs gone, they left. We saw International Harvester, Western Electric, Brock's Candy Company. I can name the companies that have left the west side, and those jobs have not been replaced. And so as a result of it, I mean, you have swaths of communities that are just desperately unemployed, and people are looking for things to do. And if someone's unemployed and they've dropped out of school, chances are they're going to find a way to make money and support themselves. And that way that they're going to do it is an illegal way.
All right, folks, we have about 10 minutes left. If you have a question or comment, please give us a call. The number is 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. Also, now, I just read this today. What a lot of people forget a lot of times is that Cook County has, the crown jewel, the forest preserves.
Yes.
And today I read that there is a over one of the parks, so I wrote it down here, Bemis Woods, there is zip lines that were installed. Talk about this. This is something, this is interesting.
I think that Superintendent Arnold is doing an excellent job at the Forest Preserve. You're right. It is one of the crown jewels of our county. It's an opportunity for individuals to go and release a lot of that energy that's built up, to learn from nature and that sort of thing. So we have zip lines that you talked about that have been recently put in, but we also have toboggans, we have horseback riding, we have archery, we have a number of things that are going on at the Forest Preserve that are actually outstanding. One of the things that I often get concerned about is that you don't have much of the Forest Preserve on the west side of Chicago. I mean, it's not a lot there. I mean, you got to go to the western suburbs, and you pick it up there in River Forest, or you pick it up in Maywood. Those don't really have the kinds of things that zipline and stuff like that. But I think the superintendent has done a tremendous job. One of the things I really want to applaud him on is that they've been able to find about 300 or so positions where they're going to make them available for young people this summer. We've been pushing hard for a summer jobs program for young people. The County of Cook does not have a summer jobs program like the city does. I've been pushing hard to have that, and so President Preckwinkle asked Superintendent Arnold to figure out if he can free up some money to hire some young people, and about 300 will be hired as a result of that. And so I want to applaud him for his leadership and for his team. I think they're doing a tremendous job, and I encourage people, please visit the Forest Preserve, make utilization of all of the activities that exist at the Forest Preserve, because you pay for it. These are your tax dollars that are being put to work.
President Preckwinkle, this is the one thing that came out recently. She was talking about the Cook County Jail, and a big achievement that the population is down 25% over the last few years. So to talk about that too.
Yes, so I want to thank President Preckwinkle for her leadership here, but let me also thank Chief Judge Tim Evans, and let me thank Sheriff Tom Dart. This you can't reduce the jail population without having the court system work in tandem with the sheriff, and of course with the county board president. And so I want to give them kudos. Yes, the jail population is down, but you got more people who are not in jail. They're out on electronic monitoring. So I mean, the population of those who are still detained is still pretty high. So we got to figure out a way, how do we steer people out of the system. I mean, one of the things that I'll give Sheriff Dart credit for is that he has been one of the most compassionate sheriffs in all of America. He really brought light and focus to the issue of mental illness inside the jails. Basically, states cut back in the mental health budgets, and they basically have criminalized the issue of mental health. They basically made the jails the place where people go for their mental treatment. And so Sheriff Tom Dart, he's done everything that he can. He has a psychologist who's actually Dr. Nika Jones running the jail, first time in the history of Cook County, and I think probably of any correctional facility across the country. But what we also have is we have a situation now where the hospital is working with CPD and with the sheriff's office, and they're putting together a triage facility. It's going to be in Roseland. It's going to open really soon. It's going to be a place where if somebody's exhibiting mental illness, they're going to take them to that facility, treat them there, as opposed to taking them to the Cook County Jail. So I think a combination of things, making sure that we divert people who have mental illness, making sure that we have specialty courts to deal with some of these issues, veterans, mental illness and stuff, prostitution court, and making sure that people who absolutely need to be detained inside the facility are there, and those who are no threat to society can be under electronic monitoring.
And I know that you're in the past, you've been a proponent really of more funding for mental health.
Yes.
And then with the budget impasse again, that's put everything at a standstill. So so what are you trying to do? What are you telling your constituents?
Look, I think right now what we have to do is we just have to focus on making sure that the funding comes through the Affordable Care Act. So there's funding there in the Affordable Care Act, but certainly there are programs that are being impacted as a result of the budget impasse. There are a number of mental health agencies that have had to let staff go as a result of this. And of course, any reduction in staff, that means that it's going to impact the quality of care that's being rendered. And so, you know, when you have situations like high unemployment, you have an economy that basically is not working for everybody. You have gun violence and the trauma associated with gun violence. And then you just have the ordinary living in the city, the toughness of living in the city. I mean, there are individuals who need this help that won't get it as a result of these cuts and as a result of not having a state budget. So I'm concerned about them. I pray for them every day, and I thank God for the Affordable Care Act. The fact that that does provide some level of service. I know that, you know, in my district in Proviso Township Mental Health Commission, they, of course, are providing mental health treatment and services. I met with that group a few weeks ago, and they told me that things are coming along well. They're going to try to collaborate with the Cook County Health and Hospital System to see if we can extend even beyond that and onto the west side and do some things there.
We have just about 2 minutes left, so we're going to have to wrap it up. But I wanted to bring one more point in. Cook County's clerk's office recently released the latest tax report, the tax rate report. For folks who are in the city of Chicago, like property tax owners, they're seeing a possible 13% increase on average. What are constituents telling you about this? Is this a concern for you?
Let me tell you, I think it's unconscionable to raise property taxes on people at a time like this when we're in a serious recession. I call it a recession because that's what it is. I mean, people's wages aren't going up. They're pretty much staying flat if they have a job at all. And so, you know, if ever I had an opportunity, let me just be clear, the Cook County Board did not increase people's property taxes. We have not voted to raise property taxes. That's as a result of the city council and the mayor raising the property taxes of residents in the city of Chicago. We actually send out the bills. As Cook County, we send you the bill, but we don't raise your taxes unless we take that vote to do that. But you got my commitment that I won't vote to raise people's property taxes unless we have a better economy in which everybody is enjoying in terms of working in the labor market and that sort of thing. And I'll only do it if it's an absolute necessary thing that we got to do it to fund healthcare or fund the operations of public safety, because those are the two primary things that the county does, public health and public safety. We do a little bit around economic development, and I'm proud of that. One of our folks will actually get some good news this week, a number of entities in our district.
That's great. Well, you know what? It looks like we got to wrap up. So, but first, I'm going to show folks ways to get a hold of you. There's the information right there. His phone number, 312-603-4566. Email richard.boykin@cookcountyil.gov. And also, he's got a very nice website here, richardrboykin.com. You can go here. You can learn more about the issues. And actually, what's really neat over here, he's got a little events area here, so you can find out what's happening down the line. So this is something important, you know, for folks to learn about. I'm sure it's important for you to let people know about that there are a lot of good things that are going on in your district and that you're a part of.
I just encourage people to be involved in government. But the Tocqueville said the people get the government that they deserve. I want to encourage people to get involved, get in the way, make your voices heard.
Well, it's wonderful having you on tonight. I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank Sylvia for also taking care in the background, producing the show. Once again, my name is Mike Jacobson. You're watching CanTV's Political Forum. Have a good night, everyone.